In this video, we will continue to explore some principles when it comes to creating an assembly file, um, but we will particularly move forward to creating in-context parts, which meaning we're going to be creating the part in the assembly file rather than creating it as a part file like you traditionally have done probably in the past. So to do this, we're going to open up an assembly and we'll get going from there. For this video, we'll be using the assembly principles 2 and 3 parts. So please make sure that you're using that right video or those correct parts, and additionally the drawing for that, which should look something like this. This is the first page of those drawings. We'll be assembling these hinges together. I've given you the hinge 1 and hinge 2 part, but I have not given you the pin here because that's the part we're going to be making in the context of the assembly. So we'll kind of go quickly through placing the hinge parts so that we can get to the pin. So hinge 1 will be the part that we use kind of as our base, so to speak. So we're not going to click over here. Just to review from the last video, where we want the origin of this part to line up with the origin of our assembly file. So we're actually just going to hit the check mark over here. Okay, and then now we can insert the other part. We will insert the hinge 2 part. There we go. This one we will just click really anywhere to place it, and then we can go from there. Before we try making the pin, we will, or I will, get these parts mated together properly, and then we'll get on to the pin contact. So we'll use our mate tool just like we did in the last video, and I'll start by selecting some surfaces here that I want to make together. So I'll select that surface and this one here. Now, this is something I didn't get to go over in the last video. Sometimes when you select things, they don't quite go together in the direction that you want them to. What we call that mate alignment. So with every mate that you place, you pretty much have the option to change the alignment. And so we want to actually flip the way that this is aligned. So we're going to click that, and then that's exactly how we want it. So we're going to go there, check mark. And then if we can grab this circular feature here, and we can really grab any circular feature on the other part, and we will make them concentric, and we will not lock the rotation. We want this to move, and all that good. And then we're going to do another advanced mate. In the previous video, we did the width, we did a variable distance, and this one will do a variable angle. We want the hinge to be able to open to 180 degrees, and we want it to be able to close to 0 degrees. But we don't want it to interfere with itself like that, or to open past that. And so that's where we come into our mate tool. We change to advanced mates. And then just like we did the distance last time, we'll do angle here, variable angle. We'll select these two edges. And for our largest angle, we'll do 180. For our smallest angle, we'll do 0. And then we'll hit check mark. Now, that was going the wrong direction from what I intended. And so it's easy as going into your model tree, finding that mate in here. I'm going to rebuild for just a second. Got that stop sign. Finding our mate in here, hitting that mate, editing the feature, and then changing again the mate alignment there. Now it should go 0 degrees, 180 degrees, and we'll move past that. That's perfect. That's what we want. Okay. Now I'm going to save this assembly. Probably should have saved it sooner, but I'll just save it now. Anytime it asks you if you want to rebuild it, the answer is most likely yes, you want to rebuild it. Okay, and we'll do this hinge assembly. Oops. Good thing this isn't a typing tutorial. All right, okay, hinge assembly. Now we want to make the pin that goes into the hinge, and it's this guy right here. Now I recognize I don't give you any dimensions on the pin. There's really only one dimension you need. The rest of the things you can actually make using the context of the hinge. And that's what's so powerful about these in-context parts. So there's a few things that we have to go through. I'll go slow through this because it's really important that you select the correct things. Okay. We're going to insert another component, but we're not inserting an existing component, we're inserting a component we haven't created yet. So we have to hit this drop down and create new part. Select new part. Okay. Now you notice the check mark is following my mouse around. I'm just going to click anywhere until that goes away. And then I recommend before you do anything else, save the file again. Okay, this will allow you to specify where you want this new part saved. You can see right here, it's underneath the assembly. We're gonna hit save all. For the purposes of this class, you always want to save externally. It will help you avoid lots of errors. So always, always, always like save externally. You don't need to specify the path. The path is just going to save it in wherever the other parts, or sorry, wherever the assembly is saved in that same folder. Hit OK. Now it has saved that part. Now we want to rename the part. I recommend doing it from the assembly. An issue, if you were to close out the assembly and then go rename the part wherever it's saved, the next time you try to open the assembly, it's going to be looking for part 2 because that's what the assembly says, but maybe you renamed it to pin, and so it's not going to line up, and you're going to have some file path issues. You're going to have to search for the part. So I like to save it in the context of the assembly before I do anything else. So right click on your part, hit rename tree item, and if you're lucky, it will allow you to rename it right here with no issues. Depending on what version of SolidWorks you are, what computer you're working on, you might have to change some of the settings. So I want to show you how to do that. If you go into options and you go to feature manager, there is a toggle here that says allow component files to be renamed from feature manager tree. Okay, you have to make sure that is selected. I've already had it selected, but if you go to rename the part and it gives you an error, this is where you need to go to turn that on. Once you turn that on, then you can come here, you can rename the part, and I'm going to name this as hinge pin. Okay, you might get this weird error saying, basically asking if you want to rename it. You say yes, and then it wants to rebuild. Anytime it asks for you to rebuild, say yes. Okay, and then just for redundancy's sake, I'm going to save the assembly again and just make sure everything is updated. This is because I've renamed the document. Just hit OK. Just kind of follow the prompts to push you through so that eventually you'll have a fully saved assembly, no asterisk at the top, and you'll have all of your parts named what you want them to be. Okay? I know that was a lot. Feel free to rewind the video if you need to. Now what we're going to do is we're going to edit this part. You're going to say, what part? Because there's nothing there, right? Well, the part is here. It's in the context of the assembly, but there's no solid bodies or sketches associated with this part. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to add those features. So we select the part and we hit edit component. We can also right click on the part and hit edit part, same thing. And then now you'll notice this part is blue, whereas the other parts are still black. Okay, this lets us know we're editing the part essentially in the part file, but in the context of the assembly. Hopefully that's not confusing. And so if this is not blue, then you're not editing it correctly. So you always want to make sure that that this file is blue before you make any changes to it. And then here we can start editing just like normal. The neat thing is though, we can select parts of these existing components to tie our new pin to. So for example, I can select this face and I can open up a sketch on that face. I'm going to do a circle for the head of the pin, and I can just make that circle be the same size as the edge. I can select the edge, select the circle, make them equal, and there we go. It's almost like using the convert entities option, but within the context of the assembly. It makes your life really easy. So here I'm going to extrude this, and this is the one that mentioned that you might need. We're just going to do 0.1. Honestly, it doesn't matter how big you do it. Just make sure you have some sort of extrude there, and you're good to go. Now I'm going to sketch again on that face, sketch, and we'll sketch one more circle, and then same thing. I'll make that circle to be the same size as everything else. If you're having trouble grabbing it, normally you can kind of click and drag and it will snap to it. I'm still having some issues. Let's see if I can get it to snap to it. There we go. Okay. I'm just gonna throw a dimension on there just so I can fix the size, just because I was having issues snapping to it, but you don't necessarily need that dimension. Okay. Now I can do my extrude, and I don't know necessarily how long this is. I mean, I could measure it, or I can just select up to surface and then select the bottom surface of this hinge. And there we go. I'm ready to go back to the context of the assembly now. So I'm going to select edit component, or I'm going to hit this arrow over to the right. Either way, it'll take me back to the assembly. Notice now my hinge pin is black and it contains those features that we just created. I'm going to rebuild just to get rid of that stop sign. And there we go. That's pretty much it. If I wanted to see that pin, I could hide the other components. So right click, hide, hide. And there you go. There's my hinge pin. I'll go ahead and show both of those components. Additionally, if I wanted to edit this, but it's confusing for me to see it in the context of the assembly, I can just open it in its own file from here by selecting open part. Open part. Now it's in its own SolidWorks part file, which is something you should be plenty used to by now. I'm not going to save changes because one moment. Okay, we're good. Just want to make sure that we didn't lose anything. Anyway, I'll save the assembly now. Again, save everything. So now it's saving the changes to the pin that I made and saving the assembly, and we're good to go.